I told you she'd be a distraction.
She's not a distraction. It's nice having her on board. She's a breath of fresh ass.
Pardon me?
What?
You said ass.
No, I didn't. I said it's nice having her on board. She's a breath of fresh air.
Let's just get some shut ass.
Agents of the Wild West must save President Grant from the clutches of a diabolical, wheelchair-bound steampunk savvy Confederate scientist. That's a lot. Bent on revenge for losing the Civil War. Big Willie style July continues and potentially ends this week as we talk about the best steampunk cowboy film ever released in the 90s, Wild Wild West. And we got
only because they didn't make a Deadlands movie yet.
And we got a special guest here to talk about it with us tonight. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shannon Young. The theater is open. This is Extras and Epilogues. With me, of course, let me first introduce my good friend and co-host, Double H, Hunter Hendricks.
Shannon, that is a man's head.
Joke went on a little too long. And to talk about this film with us tonight, Mr. Jesse Kimball, who returns to the show.
That's still a line I regularly quote.
Yeah.
Whenever I get an opportunity.
That's a man's.
Is a man's
head. All right. So I'm going to say this now. I'm going to get it out of the way. I'm just going to say it now. I like this movie more than Men in Black. That's the teaser.
Damn.
That's the teaser. It's the teaser. But you need to hear why. You need to hear why.
You are really not going to want to do Phantom of the Opera next week after tonight.
Oh Lord! All right, well, let's just get in the nitty gritty of this. So, we're talking about Wild Wild West, based on the old TV show, which my dad loved, by the way. My dad was a huge fan of the old TV show, and I was too. To be fair, I watched it a lot. You know, there was the Western Channel on satellite. My dad watched it almost nonstop. And they played Wild Wild West on, I think it was either it or maybe it was TNT. I don't know. Whatever satellite channel it was, my dad watched Wild Wild West like crazy. I liked it because even though I wasn't huge into Westerns, I was big into, sci-fi and stuff like that. And it was kind of a mix of that, especially for, what was it, the 60s, 70s? It was
70s.
It was pretty revolutionary. They decided to make a film adaptation of it. It was directed by Barry Sonnenfeld, who did Men in Black. This is coming off of huge mega hit Men in Black. And it did not do well. Let's talk about it. Released on June 30th, 1999. I'm going to get through the small details real quick before we get to the dialogue. Starring Will Smith, of course, Big Willie July, here on Podzilla 1985. Kevin Kline, who was really good in this. Kenneth Branagh.
Kevin Kline's very good.
Who's really good in this.
Kenneth Branagh is great in this.
Salma Hayek, who I actually also enjoyed in this film. And there was nobody in this film I didn't enjoy on some level. There was no one that I went, I hate this character, I hate this person, get out of here. But we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a second. A runtime of 106 minutes. It's a good length. Hunter, it's not quite the sweet spot, but it's not bad.
If there's something I will give this movie, it doesn't outstay its welcome. There's nothing that I watched and went, we could have lived without this.
Could have cut that
section.
Part.
Yeah.
Here's where it gets rough. Budget versus box office. 170 million versus 222 million. Technically, that sounds like a winner. Hey, they made, 50 million on this movie. It's not quite that clean, unfortunately.
Not that simple.
And the critical reception to this compared to some of Will Smith's other big films was abysmal. It has a 16% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. That's 4.1 out of 10. 38 out of 100 on Metacritic with generally unfavorable reviews. Damn, whiskey? Calm down. It's got a C+. I haven't eaten. It's got a C+. Yes, I did. C+ on Cinema Score. And it got 1 out of 4 stars from Roger Ebert, who said this movie is all concept and no content. The elaborate special effects are like watching money burn on the screen. Quick note, I have been watching a lot of Siskel and Ebert on YouTube lately. I've been going back and watching their old episodes, especially their Worst Of series, where they review films at the end of the year. And I think that's something we should do on this show, Hunter, just you and me, talking about the year's worst films at the end of the year. Maybe not even films that came out this year, but films we watched, whatever timeline, and we think are the worst.
I'm here for it. You don't have to tell me twice.
Yeah.
I'm down.
And you can also catch Ebert and Siskel and Ebert on YouTube. If you just look them up, they have a lot of the old episodes posted. And watching them, I thought to myself, God, how good are they? Gene Siskel and Robert Ebert. I know we talk about it a lot, how we drew inspiration from them, but they're in the same way that Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan, Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler, there will never be anyone that tops that. That is the duo right there. So this show, garbage compared to what they did. Absolute garbage. Like this film. There it is. There it is.
Man, I am legitimately finding out just as soon as I started reading this document that this movie did so poorly. I had always been
it's under bad.
I don't know why I didn't know that. I just never had a cause to look into it. I
because
thought
you
this
saw
was
it when you were 9 and you thought it was amazing.
Sir, I was 11 when this movie came out.
All right.
Wow, we are only 3 years in I thought it was longer than that. I don't know why.
Yeah, I think like you
because
fall
I was
into
14.
you fall into that frequently where you think you were considerably older than me for some reason.
I do. I don't know why. Probably because I think of Steven, and I'm so much older than him.
Yeah, I'm also so much older than Steven.
Yeah,
that's true.
You guys definitely are.
But either way,
it's the same gap between me and you as it is between me and Jesse, just the other direction.
I was
calm
50.
down,
I was
right?
54 when this film came out originally.
You remember the source material.
I always thought like this was a universally beloved film for
it was
some
not.
reason.
No, it was not.
And I'm sitting there, like, it doesn't surprise me like seeing this after having watched it yesterday. But like
I'll tell you who it was beloved by. Me when it came out. Yes.
Yeah, all
of
three
us.
of us. I fucking loved this movie.
I was all
when
about
it came out.
All right.
This is the first time I remember going to the theater more than once to see a movie.
Same.
I went with my dad both times, and he loved this movie as well. Still does, as far as I know.
Me and my brother
went to Burger King, got the tiny sunglasses for some reason.
Lindsay has them right now. She asked me if I wanted to wear them for the show,
had them all.
and I said, "Who would
both
see
of them
it?"
or whatever. It's insane. And yet you pair that with so much. Well, you guys talk about the good stuff, and then I want to run down this trivia while we're talking about how much the critical reception is bad. Because I was telling Jesse before you got in here, I didn't realize until after I did it, all 4 points I put down for trivia are about how bad the movie is.
Yes. Well, one of them isn't bad; it's just unfortunate. It was a bad decision. Yeah,
that's true.
Go ahead.
But yeah, I legitimately. So whenever you guys are talking about like the source material, like going back to that for a second. I regularly would see that pop up, and whenever I first saw it, like I saw, Wild Wild West, the TV show pop up, I had no idea that it was a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine like my chagrin when I thought I was tuning in to watch Will Smith and Kevin Kline's shenanigans,
and it was Robert Conrad,
and I got an old Western, and I was like, "Damn it!" I was so disappointed.
So
it's so sad.
I said this at the beginning of the show at the teaser, and I want to explain it. I like this film more than Men in Black. I do, legitimately. I watched this film today. It's an objectively. I don't want to say it's an objectively bad film because I don't think it's a bad film. I think it's a middle film.
That's also not how objectivity works, but that's okay.
Well, it is when you've drunk this much whiskey.
Matt, the whiskey was reserved for Thursdays, Shannon.
No, I've had a rough couple of days, and I needed to relax just a little bit. So Daddy went and got himself a little whiskey here. Point is, I subjectively, I think this is better. It was more fun watching it. I got more of a sense of smirking than I did with Men in Black. Men in Black is a better film by far. I'm not going to deny that. It's kind of like Ghostbusters 2 and Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is a better film. Ghostbusters 2 I enjoy more. And it's the same way with these two films. This film is flawed as hell. And I would be lying to you if I said it wasn't. There's a lot of stuff in this that I had forgotten since I hadn't watched this in probably 10, 15 years. There was some stuff that I went, oh, that's... One, I forgot how racist this film was.
Oh, it's so bad.
It's incredibly racist.
Post Civil War.
That's true. And
at least it fits the timing, but man, it's they don't pull the punches.
No, it's a lot.
No, they
And Hunter and I were talking about this. We were messaging each other back and forth today because I agreed with him. How much this movie obsesses over specific things. The first one that I picked up on is one that you mentioned, is putting people in drag. Okay, yes. Let me say this.
Boy, it loves that, doesn't it?
That is probably my least favorite part of this film. I don't understand the concept of man in dress instantly funny. That's not how that works. That's not how it's ever worked.
Or instantly fools everyone around him when he's not even doing it well.
Yes, like
that's
Will Smith.
The part that gets me.
Will Smith.
Right, well, and Kevin Kline in the beginning. Neither one of them actually looks.
So the Kevin Kline.
Come on, man.
Like that was fine for what it was, but the ending legitimately bothered me. Like when Will Smith comes out,
that was bad.
And like that was, I don't know, like if we're getting into like the nitty gritty of the film, but like that was the one moment where I was like, God damn, that's so fucking stupid.
That's the worst part of the film.
Yeah, Will Smith comes out in drag, and immediately Loveless just stops everything he's doing because he is such a sex-crazed maniac that he's like, ooh, look at this woman.
Okay, so here's my theory on that. I have a legitimate theory on that, and I think it's all of the things he said to Jim West in the film, all of the racism. I think he was a closeted love black women kind of thing. He loved black women, and seeing because he didn't have any black women in his group. There was, which, by the way, his group, some of the all-time greatest characters, like the one the one that uses weapons named Munitia, or the one that could read lips named Miss Lippenreader.
They had to be nicknames, right? There's no way. Yeah, Miss East, Munitia, and Miss Lippenreader.
Miss Lippenreader.
She made the East meets West joke twice, and it failed both times.
Yes.
Why would you go back to the well when it bombed the first time?
She also asked if he liked to poke around, and that was the first time Shannon saw a girl in a thong. So
and so that leads right into the second thing this movie is obsessed with, which is asses.
A lot of asses in this movie.
What is with the asses?
There's
a lot of asses in this film.
So much,
and if we're not seeing or focusing on them, we're hearing reference to them. Why didn't you have that on a little spring loader thing that pops out your ass?
That's first place Loveless would have looked.
Oh my god, it's so ridiculous.
And that whole fucking pun conversation, a breast of fresh ass.
Oh my god,
let's get some shut ass.
And at least that's funny because we've all referenced it so many times and remembered it.
A lot.
That's funny. But even in context, I didn't laugh out loud. I mean, I'm just watching going, yep, okay.
I chuckled.
To make the ass joke.
The part that
I didn't laugh out loud one time watching this movie.
Oh,
I did.
I'm a little more forgiving. One part that I remember liking as a kid, and kid is subjective term. I was 40, but I did like even now.
You were 17.
Was the part where they're on the train and going back to the drag thing, and he's like, they're talking about how the breast felt terrible, and he says, "Feel my breast," and it shows Emmett Walsh, and he looks up and he's like, "I knew it." That still makes me laugh. I still laughed. I still laughed.
Good. It's good. It's a homophobic joke. Yes, phenomenal.
I still laughed. There was something about it that still made me chuckle. And that's the thing with this film.
Nope.
Objectively, I would say this isn't a great film. And that's how we review films on here. But subjectively, I still had joy watching this movie. I still like the style. I like the costumes. I like the setup.
And the effects.
I like the effects.
Oh.
I like all of that stuff.
Well, some of the effects they did and they didn't, right? Because there were a few times that green screen was real bad.
That's true, but it was the 80s. What do you expect?
Oh, okay. So it's 1999, the same year that the fucking Matrix comes out,
which is crazy because
the green screen is that bad. But I hated the film, the plot, right. Yes, but the special effects were unfucking believable for 1999.
That's true.
This movie spent almost its entire budget on that fucking spider. Can we talk about the spider? Because that's the third thing that this movie is obsessed with is fucking spiders.
I never get the spider thing. In fact, watching this again, there were parts that I missed from the beginning. Like when they're in his banner or wherever they are, all the spiders on the windows and the glass.
Yeah, that's... Love was his whole theme.
He's a comic book villain.
You know the story about the spider, right? And why all of this is such a big deal. Okay.
Oh, well, hold on. Let me throw it out, and you tell me how much I get right, and you complete it. Okay. So, if I remember correctly, there was another film that they were using this for, and something happened where they didn't.
Let me pause you real quick.
Okay.
It was Superman Lives.
Superman Lives. That's
supposed to be the
Yeah.
next Superman movie. Bryan Singer was directing
The Nick Cage one.
and Nick Cage. Nick Cage
Yes.
was going to be Bryan Singer. No, Joel Schumacher. Sorry, wrong guy.
Schumacher
was
Yeah.
directing. Nick Cage was supposed to be Superman. They did the screen test. Infamously, you've seen the costume. It looks
Yes.
terrible.
It's in
One of
Flash.
the producers
Also looked terrible.
Yes, one of the producers for that movie that was supposed to get made, and then, this is where you tell the story. Go ahead, go back. That's where it was.
No, that's it. That's all I knew.
Okay,
that's
so
it.
one of the producers for that movie, whose name escapes me, but he's a producer on this movie as well, was obsessed with the idea of the villain in a movie being a giant spider.
Sure.
He just needed a giant spider in a movie.
Sure.
So he was trying to force it into Superman Lives. That didn't happen. That movie got canned completely.
Right.
And when he became a producer on this movie, one of the conditions was, okay, but when we're doing the rewrites, which is why you'll notice if you look, there are 2 people who wrote the story for this movie and like 5 others who wrote the screenplay. I didn't put them on the notes here because there's too many to list. It's kind of a rule of thumb that the more people that are listed as having written the movie, probably the worse the movie's going to be.
Yes.
Because that means this thing was written by committee. That means that, to be fair, when you have a partnership, like, they're not writers, but the Russo brothers who directed the big,
Marvel.
Avengers movies and that sort of stuff, or the Coen brothers who work together. That's different. That's a partnership. Right, and that happens a lot in TV as well, that you'll have a lot of writing groups or writing pairs that work together. But past that, if they're not like a well-known like pairing, the more people involved in the writing, the worse it's going to be. Because again, that means it was written by committee. Somebody wrote a draft, and then somebody took that and punched it up, and then somebody took that and punched it up. And so every time we got to keep giving them credit, but that means that someone else's vision got into it.
It's diluting.
And it's the too many cooks theory, basically. It's what we run into. So.
I'm going to say this real quick because I may never get a chance to say it again. I may forget, but I have 2 rules when it comes to gauging if I want to watch a film or if I'm afraid to watch said film. One is exactly what you just said. How many writers were there on it, right? The other one is the writer the same person as the director, who is the same person as the actor, the lead actor?
Yeah.
Unless it's certain circumstances, sometimes that is a disaster.
That can go both ways, but it is. That's a big gamble.
Because I think Ryan Reynolds he doesn't have a directing credit on Deadpool, but he does have a producer and writing credit. Yeah,
well, that's what I mean. For big stars, sometimes that's not so bad. But when you get a lot of indie filmmakers who decide, not only am I going to write this, I'm going to direct it, and I'm going to star in it because I'm clearly the best for the role, it can get dicey. It can get dicey.
So real quick, that's where the spider thing comes into play, is that they ended up with a giant mechanical spider. This dude finally got it into this movie.
He got his wish.
He could, get it out of his system or whatever. I'm sure he washed it many times alone with a box of tissues. And so I guess they just decided, well, if he's going to have a big spider, we may as well make him obsessed with spiders for some reason.
Makes no sense.
So then, there's a spider on the flag, the spiders around the cake, which I still don't get. The president goes, careful, and these tarantulas come out of nowhere. Tarantulas, as you pointed out, some of the friendliest and calmest just happen to be big spiders.
Right.
West himself later in the movie has one on his hand. It's like, oh, he's just trying to get warm.
So not to go off on a
then
tangent
why were you
here.
worried about the other? They're on the saw blades.
As someone who has had to deal with spiders when moving into his new home, I've learned a lot about them. And I've learned that tarantulas, in fact, a lot of the times when you see spiders in film, and I mean this, a lot of the times when you see spiders in films, they're the most harmless spiders you will ever see. The only dangerous spiders in the United States, if you want to get technical, are the brown recluse and the black widow. How many times can you remember seeing a brown recluse as a bad spider in a movie? Never. It's always the tarantula because it's the biggest spider.
It's big and scary.
It's a big fuzzy pet, is what it is. And as a spider, spider advocate, it pisses me off.
The tarantula's bite can be pretty bad.
But they don't bite. That's the thing.
It's extremely unlikely that it's going to bite you.
Right. Spiders in general are not aggressive. Now, some are if you go to Australia, but as a general rule on the show, we say don't go to Australia because everything will try to kill you out there.
Right, don't do that. They're sending all their best stuff out anyway. You don't have to go there. Hugh Jackman's here.
He's here.
We got him here now.
Yeah, we got Nicole Kidman. We got Keith Urban.
Right. Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
We're gonna. I have a feeling, even though I like this film, I'm gonna be very critical of it because there is a lot to be critical of.
I'm sorry. I really want you to subtitle this episode with apologies to Keith Urban.
With apologies to Keith Urban. I think he's doing fine. Don't you worry about him.
He's doing fine.
Let's talk about one thing that I think we can all agree on that makes this, that I think is better in this film than Men in Black by far, and that's the main villain. Kenneth Branagh. No disrespect to Vincent D'Onofrio, because I love Vincent D'Onofrio. He did great in Men in Black. But I found Arliss Lovelace to be such an entertaining villain. And not just entertaining, but kind of interesting. You're talking about a South surrogate who lost so much and blames the South for surrendering. And now he is he kills his own men. He's kind of ruthless. I really liked Kenneth Branagh as a character as the main villain. And Kenneth Branagh just crushes it as Lovelace. Well, you think this is a British dude playing a Southern dandy, he's so good at
also
it.
A British dude who was a prolific stage actor.
He is a prolific stage actor.
Too, yes, he was all over the theater, so he kind of had training and experience.
What a strange casting, but incredible.
But I think it's really important to know that to note that he's so good because so much of the rest of the movie is so bad. They gave him so much more to work with, and he's just chewing this fucking scenery because he can. Because the whole thing's so over the top.
And it is, and that's actually one thing I like about this film. It is so over the top. I don't know. I wish I could describe it. I feel like I'm in a Tanner-like position right now, where I really enjoy this film, despite the fact that I see how bad it is. And a lot of what I like about it just comes from a feeling of, man, I just enjoyed watching this. But if you were to ask me specifically, give me 5 reasons why you enjoyed it, I would be hard-pressed to tell you anything in specific.
Can I try to give you some context for that? Because I think I know what it is, and it's the same feeling that I had.
Go for it.
You want to like it. You want to like it because it includes a bunch of things that you like. You like Will Smith. You like Kevin Kline. Comes to find out, you like Kenneth Branagh.
I love him. I love
Kevin Kline. I said I fucking love the concept of this movie. I wanted to play Deadlands on PZ85 Plays the year we started that show. It took 4 years to get around to starting that. I'm so ready to get back to it too, because I fucking love sci-fi Wild West shit. Throw in some steampunk on top of that. I think it's a great idea. Alternate American history type stuff where it's like it's rooted in reality, but it's got some over the top type shit is great. And so I love the setup. I love the concept. I love the idea. But everything here is just pieces, and the connecting tissue just does not work for me. That to me is why I can't say, I like the idea behind this movie, but when I watch it, I can't really tell you what it is I like about it. I just like that it's so close to being what I want.
I enjoyed every performance in this movie except Will Smith. And I mean that.
Salma Hayek is bad in this movie.
I don't think she's terrible. I think
she's bad, and I think the writing's bad, and I think the character's bad.
I think the character's
the writing of the character.
The character's pointless. The character's pointless.
She just goes over the top all the time with like the I'm super hot and manipulating the guys into doing what she wants them to do.
And it works.
Can we talk about that? Because I mentioned this to Shannon too. Why does she lie and say that the professor is her dad and not her husband?
And I think I gave you a reasonable answer, and that is because she knows, being around men, seeing how people are, that if she pretends to be available and ask them for something, they're more likely to give it to her than if she said, actually, I'm looking for my husband.
That is correct.
Yes. I gathered that from the beginning.
I said to you that I could I don't think you saw it. I can accept that answer, but here's the thing. The movie does nothing to help you get to that point at all. You have to come to that conclusion completely on your own.
She kissed Will Smith.
And on top of that, she pines for West even when he's not there. They make a running joke of it. He's so courageous. He's so agile or whatever. What is the point of that?
I can explain that. I have a reason for that. That is because the director really wanted you to know how cool Jim West was.
Honestly, I think I have a better answer for that.
Go ahead.
She already had Kevin Kline's character. She had Artemis already wrapped up. She didn't need to put forth any extra effort. She saw what she was doing was working. He was working extra hard to compete with Jim. Jim didn't need any of that.
I agree with that. But then
why does she do it when he's not there?
Well, I was going to say, I agree with that. But
she does it in front of Artemis.
I agree with Hunter that it
but not every time.
It's artificial.
Like at least once, but not every time.
I thought she did it every time in front of Artemis because
I
he
don't
always
think so.
had a line about it. Like the thing, like, you know, they're only as courageous as like the
that one, yes, I'll give
the
you that
mechanics
one.
around them, and then
Yes.
like
And
what
then
was
the
the other
mechanics
one?
fail.
Oh, so
Yeah.
while you're thinking
Yeah.
about that, I want to bring it back to something else real quick. When you were talking about Hunter, you were talking about the sci-fi Western stuff. I 100% agree with you. And I was thinking to myself, and maybe the reason that, well, no, I'm not going to back down. I still like this film. But
I'm not saying you should.
Right. Obviously, this is everybody's opinion. But I started to think to myself, name 3 sci-fi Westerns you like. And maybe part of the reason that I like it so much is because it's so rare. I can only name 2.
That's what I'm saying.
I can only name 2, and that's Wild Wild West and Cowboys and Aliens with Daniel Craig and Harrison Ford. And that's a terrible
And I
film.
like that less than this. Yeah, I was going to say, I can only think of those 2,
It's
and that
boring.
movie's awful.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
It's not a genre that they tackle very often, which is crazy because sci-fi Western is such a cool concept, as is horror Western, and they've barely done anything with that either.
Getting past the sort of golden age of cinema back when we had, you know, Errol Flynn and
Sure.
John Wayne as your stars, 2 things became box office poison for a while there, and I'm not talking about Carrot Top right now. Westerns, westerns, and pirate movies.
Yeah.
Hollywood wouldn't touch those fucking things for a long time.
So
After
Pirates
that.
of the Caribbean.
Now the '90s, and then after that, it didn't really work again either.
Right.
Westerns survived by becoming serious, like, period dramas.
I was about to say
Tombstone,
that.
Unforgiven.
Yes. The
They
Clint
moved
Eastwoods
away
of the
from
world.
being action
Right.
flicks.
Yeah.
But Western action flicks really haven't worked since then in a lot of ways either. If they're not dramatic, like, do you even remember the Magnificent Seven remake that came out a few years ago?
I've never watched
do.
it. I've never watched it.
Just fine.
It was fine,
was
as nice as I could be about it. It was pretty bad. It's just not, for whatever reason, it just does not work. And again, the concepts are great, but
Jonah
once
Hex.
you get it to the screen, it doesn't work.
Oh, the Jonah Hex is so
God.
bad.
Yeah, would you?
Oh, it's so bad.
Let's say, when you talk about stuff that, man, how's it going to fail?
And there's your other sci-fi Western.
Yeah, Jonah Hex was out during the not quite during like the heyday of the superhero films, but it was one of the early ones of when it started to boom. And you would think Jonah Hex would be a recipe for success. I mean, it had Josh Brolin, it had Megan Fox when she was at her hottest, and then you had serious wrestlers. You had serious actors like John Malkovich in that film, and a young Jesse, help me out here. What's his name? He was Magneto. Michael Fassbender.
Oh, yeah, you got it.
You might forgot that Michael Fassbender was in that film, but that film bombed at the box office, and I remember thinking, "What? I don't care. I liked it," until I watched it again, and I thought, "No, I don't. This is not a good film."
It's the same thing I did with Green Lantern. That's the thing. Your movie can't just live and die by your actors. Your actors are obviously a critical part of the puzzle, but
it's got to be a good film.
It won't get you all the way there most of the time.
Look at Run Ronnie Run. It was developed and created by the Mr. Show creators Bob Odenkirk and David Cross. It had a huge cast, and then the final product, because of studio interference, was so bad, Bob Odenkirk and David Cross denounced it. They took their names off it, basically. It was not their project anymore.
We were talking about Salma Hayek's character before this, and before we get away from that real quick, the first thing I pointed out to you, which I thought was very funny, and this is just a writing flaw, as they are getting ready to leave her, you know, she says she has information, whatever, they're getting ready to leave her behind. She says, this is a direct quote from the movie, she says, "I'll tell you if you'll take me with you." And Wes says to her, "I'll leave you behind if you don't tell me." And I went, "That's the same thing.
That's the same thing.
That means the same thing."
Yeah.
This is not the flex that you think it is. And then, maybe I missed it, but I do not understand the sequence where she grabs the billiard ball. She's so worried Loveless is going to get her. And then she sets it off while the 3 of them are standing there. What was the plan there? Did you think Loveless was the only guy?
Even as a kid, I didn't understand that fucking bit.
Pointless.
It
She
honestly
ruins the entire thing.
For a second, I legitimately thought that she was, in on it with Loveless, because then you have that next scene. I remember thinking this when I was a kid, because you have that next scene where they're actually having a conversation where they, clearly knew each other, and it's like, okay, so was this meant to be intentional, and like this is the plot?
there's so much precedent for that because like Indiana Jones does that in Last Crusade. James Bond does that shit all the time where it turns out that the woman is actually in on it or something.
Lando Calrissian.
That felt natural. Sure, that felt natural.
That would have been a way better, like that would have redeemed her character's actions up to that point entirely.
Well, okay,
no,
you say that.
Hysterical woman.
Yeah, but then it turns out she was a hysterical woman with the ball.
I don't think her character needs redemption because at one point I could see her ass. And they commented on it.
I mean, go back to number 2 of all the things that they wanted to show over and over and over.
I always,
a lot of butts.
I remember as a youth being, I think the character I disliked the most in the film was Bloodbath McGrath. But after watching it again today,
only because of his fucking
the spittoon ear.
Yeah.
What was that?
Well, okay, actually, no, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Why does that work?
I'm glad you mentioned that because something I noticed today rewatching the film was how many of these characters had some weird sci-fi-ish weird kink. Like you had Bloodbath McGrath in the ear.
No explanation.
No explanation. The final fight where West is beating up on Marlos' guys, metal heads. The one guy has like and there's no explanation for it. And the only thing I can figure is
Lovelace's
experimentations, but they don't say that. And like, I'm sorry, I live in Missouri, Jesse. This is the show me state. Show me.
Lovelace does specifically talk about like how he is he talks about like making it to where he can pleasure a woman because of all of his mechanical knowledge, and that's really where you have to infer. Okay, so he has done many experiments on people.
And once again, I want to throw out how amazing Kenneth Branagh is in the role because he did eat up the scenery all the time, but it was in a good way. It wasn't in a it wasn't in a cringy way. He was so much fun, and he was so much fun to watch in this film. I can't describe again the joy that I watched watching the film. I really felt happy. I don't know. I can't describe it. Tanner, fuck you.
The monologue. Well, you can tell him Tanner. The monologue where he reveals the United Divided is one of the best scenes of the whole movie, if not the best scene. Because it's just Kenneth Branagh monologuing, and it's one of the few times that they get into the logic of the movie, and it makes sense.
Well,
right? They lost the Civil War. He dispatched McGrath because he surrendered. He's a traitor, right? And when he brings all these other guys in from these other countries that are supporting his efforts, and he goes, here's what we're going to do instead. You get your land back. You get yours. This all goes back where it goes. And a little piece for me to retire on. That's fucking great. Those are stakes that I could have used way earlier in the movie to give a shit about what was going on.
I also loved his quote-unquote coming out party when he comes out and he says, here I am alive
How
and
much
kicking.
He gave up for the South.
Right. He says, well, alive anyway. And he says, we don't give up our sense of humor. Even when and he starts giving up, he's talking about all the things that he sacrificed for it. And says, we never lose our sense of humor. And he has tears in his eyes. It's such a powerful performance when he could have phoned it in. Yeah.
Now,
get yourself a real fucking actor when you do shit like this.
Guess who did phone it in? The star of your fucking movie, Will Smith.
I'm gonna take another hit.
Could not look more bored in this movie if he tried.
Well, okay.
And my theory about that is that he knew it was going to be bad. That somewhere along the way he realized I turned down the fucking Matrix for this.
So I was actually
this was a bad move.
I was gonna ask you about that legitimately. Do you think that it is a case of he was bored, or do you think they were trying to portray him because he had a reputation as a cool guy? He's a cool actor. He was the it guy. Do you think they were trying to make Jim West too cool?
No, I don't think it's that at all, because I think the lines are written the same way, more or less, that they were in I'm not going to say in Men in Black, because Men in Black had a better writer. Will Smith was getting the same kinds, basically, of lines that he gets in other movies, and he delivers them so much more poignantly in Men in Black, in Bad Boys, in even Independence Day, where it was mostly just quips. He's either bored or he's tired in this movie, and I can see it being both. Frankly, I think he probably figured out somewhere along the way this isn't going to be very good. And this is 5 summers in a row, because again we skipped Enemy of the State mostly because it's an action movie, but he's not really the main star. And
it wasn't that blockbuster feel that movies like this had.
No, but I mean, this is 5 years running. He was doing at least one movie like this every year, and these are exhausting movies to make.
Right. And a lot of this was, on set, right? Like they were actually out in the desert, out in
they went to New Mexico.
Yeah, they were out. Yeah, they were out in the heat and the shit doing these scenes and stuff. Like I imagine that may have had
wearing all black.
So
probably a wool hat of some kind.
Hunter, before we get to the reviews, I'm gonna throw you to the trivia here in a second because I do want to get this in because it's interesting trivia to me. But one thing I had always heard, and I don't know if this was ever confirmed, I'd always heard that originally the role of the president was going to be portrayed by Robert Conrad, and then they instead went with Kevin Kline in disguise.
Yeah, well, it was that, and also when Robert Conrad saw the script, he was so disappointed he backed out.
He thought it was.
He didn't want to be part of it.
Here's one trivia you don't have on there, but I want to throw it out because I always thought this was fucking stupid, and this was true. This was a real one. Robert Conrad was critical of having the main bad guy be half a person. He said on record that it should have been a quote unquote midget, that it would have been better.
So the reason he said that, and I'm not fully defending it, but there is context, because that character existed in the TV show, and in the show he was played by a little person.
So two things on that. One, I did not know that. That is very interesting. Yes. And two,
Arliss Lovelace. Oh, I'm sorry, he wasn't Arliss Lovelace. He was Hispanic, and I think his name was like Miguel or something like that. Well, his last name was Lovelace.
So I'm just throwing a guess out here. Was he portrayed by the guy that played Tattoo in the?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes,
I figured. Yep. Okay.
From Fantasy Island. Yeah, yep. I think so.
All right. So let's get to that trivia.
Yeah. I mean, just real quick, because we were talking about this earlier. I didn't realize until I had done it that everything was about how bad it was. We've already talked about Will Smith turning down the role of Neo in The Matrix 4. I didn't write it on there, but he has since said that was the biggest mistake I've ever made in my career.
I can't imagine.
If only just because of the money, but yeah, not well remembered. It is commonly joked that the only reason this movie earned any money is because unaccompanied minors were buying tickets to see it and then actually going in to watch either South Park Bigger and Longer and Uncut or American Pie. I didn't talk about it earlier, but again, 1999, Shannon, do you remember when we started this show? The first episode we did was Evil Dead Rise. But after that, for about a month, maybe a month and a half, the first 5 or 6 movies we covered were all from 1999.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there was a book I had read, and I can't think of the author's name off the top of my head, but it's called Best Movie Year Ever.
Yeah,
and
that's what we based a lot of it on.
It runs down from the beginning of the year to the end of 1999, how it's, if you look at that like calendar, it's maybe the best year for cinema ever because it's a little bit of everything. American Beauty, again, South Park, total different ends of the spectrum, but big movies in their own way. This year also had The Matrix, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, in terms of like big tentpole movies. So there was a lot of other competition.
Did they have any good movies though?
Had this movie come out in a very light year, it might have done better, if only just by name alone. But
really quick, I want to throw out here. I looked it up. It was not Tattoo, because I don't want people to think I don't want people thinking we're basing all little people on one guy.
But he was a very prominent,
he was the
Hispanic
prominent
and little person actor, which is not a common combination.
No. So he was played by Michael Dunn. And his name was Dr. Miguelito Quixote Lovelace.
So it wasn't Miguel, it was Miguelito, which means Little Michael.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, boy. That's so much worse.
What else?
Anyway, the movie swept the 20th Razzies. Of course it did. It won 5 awards, including Worst Picture. Speaking of Robert Conrad, who was James West in the original series, he came on to get 3 of the awards in person because he was so upset about the source material, and then he delivered them personally to the people who won them. So, boy, he was real upset.
He was mad.
He was real mad. And then this is the last one I added because I didn't know this, and this is pretty great. We talk so much about Roger Ebert on here. He, at one point in time, coined something he called the Stanton-Walsh rule. And basically it said that any movie that has either Harry Dean Stanton or M. Emmett Walsh in it cannot be altogether bad. M. Emmett Walsh is in this movie. He plays
He's the train conductor, basically.
Is it Coleman? Coleman, yeah. Which, by the way, Coleman, shoveling coal.
I'm fine with it. I'm fine.
That's ridiculous. But Roger Ebert, so M. Emmett Walsh is in this movie. Roger Ebert said this is the movie that broke the rule. Up until 1999, it was true. If you had one of those two guys, the movie could not be altogether bad. He said they finally did it. They finally pulled it off, and this was the one. Which, by the way, M. Emmett Walsh is great in this movie. He's fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Everyone's great in this movie except Will Smith, and to an extent Salma Hayek, because I agree with the writers. But Kevin Kline, Kenneth Branagh, and even a special shout out to the guy at the end that fights Will Smith And he just starts going like, whoa, as he starts fighting and says, I learned that from a Chinaman.
I learned that from a Chinaman.
That's a great scene.
That should have been the big line from that scene where he hits him with the shovel and goes, I just made that up. That's a great line. That's a great line. Funny. Everything up to that point is kind of...
Yes.
Oh, God. What was the one that I sent you that just...
No more Mr. Knife Guy.
No more Mr. Knife Guy. You were so mad about roaches check in, but they don't check out.
It's a bad line.
That's a great line
it's
by
a bad
comparison.
Line. I consider both of those to be bad lines, but I will give you that the roach one is better. I agree.
Yeah.
Well, the roach one also
Mr.
was
Knife
based on
Guy
the
is a
president.
bad line.
Right.
I laughed.
I did
Man,
not.
okay.
And I laughed at the I just made that up.
That's
was
a good
great. I
line.
thought that
That's a
was
good
funny.
line.
Along with, I told you there were things I forgot. Your chivalry's
about to be tested. Yeah.
That's fucking funny.
Yeah,
I like
was a
that.
good line.
And that's going to lead us into the review. Of course, we follow a lot of the greats. We do this on a 5-point system. 2 thumbs up means you love it. Don't worry about that for this one. 1 thumb up means you liked it. 1 up, 1 down means you were neutral. 1 down means that you didn't like it. 2 down means you hated it. That's where Hunter's going to be. Let me go first. I'm giving this film 1 thumb up. For all my intents and purposes, I can't hate it, and I don't know why. I wish I could explain it more. I feel like I'm failing as an objective reviewer, but I thought the sets were good. I thought the characters were fun. I thought the action was fun. Kenneth Branagh as the main bad guy was a lot of fun. It's just a fun film to me. I don't know what it... I recognize that there are issues. There's some terrible writing in here. There's some questionable characters. There's some questionable scenes. But so much of it brought me joy and it made me smile. And maybe I'm basing this more on nostalgia than anything else, but my heart says 1 thumb up. That's what I'm doing. I think this is worth a watch. I think the good outweighs the bad. And we've said it before. There's not a lot of films in this same genre. There's not a lot of competition when it comes to sci-fi westerns. It's cowboys and aliens and this. And I'm not joking when I say that I'm hard pressed to think of another film that is similar. I can't think of one. So if any of our listeners can think of one and they want to say, well, you forgot about this one, I would love to hear it. But compared to Cowboys and Aliens, this is basically a masterpiece, and I had fun with it. I saw this film twice in theaters. I don't regret it. I didn't regret watching it today. The biggest surprise to me was how much Will Smith coasted. Hunter said this to me. I didn't say it out loud, and I thought it was weird because we were on the same wavelength on this 100%. Rewatching this today, Will Smith seemed like he was just phoning it in. And I don't know if that is just because he was, like we said, tired, or he knew it was going to be at least bad compared to The Matrix. Sorry, not The Matrix. Men in Black and stuff like that. Or if he was legitimately tired or thought that, hey, we want to present you as the cool, you don't give a shit kind of guy. And they mistake that for basically, not caring. Because there is something to say about when you try to be so cool that you come across as, like you don't give a shit about anything.
Aloof.
Yeah, Dennis Reynolds says it all the time. In that episode, I don't give a shit. And that makes him cool.
Yeah.
Maybe they made a mistake. But point is, I think this is a film worth watching. It was fun. It's not perfect. It's not even great, and I would hesitate to say it's good, but I think it's worth watching. I had fun. It's a thumbs up for me. I am so scared for Phantom of the Opera. Let's go to Hunter.
I'm going to be kinder than you thought. I'm going to be as kind as I can bring myself to be and go 1 up, 1 down.
I think that's more than fucking fair.
I will tell you, we often say this. I'm verging on the other other direction. I'm 1 up, 1 down, leaning toward the down than the up.
Right.
I don't think anyone who hasn't seen this movie is going to get anything out of it in 2024. I think if you saw this movie when you were younger, you might enjoy it to some degree. Like I didn't hate myself while I was watching. Don't get me wrong, but I was very critical of a lot of stuff and went, "Oh, this was great when I was 14. It's not as good when I'm 39."
Right.
There's a lot of flaws and a lot of things that I can see. Again, I want to love this movie because it is in a genre that is barely represented and that I fucking love. I think this is, again, why I wanted to play Deadlands so badly, because I think the idea of sci-fi and Western coming together really can work when it's done correctly. This ain't it. There's too much focus on things that are not really... Well, yeah, that are not really relevant to the thing that I want to see, right? Artemis's inventions are sometimes just kind of ridiculous. Sometimes they're great, and then sometimes shit is just so over the top. Like, what is the functional reason to have a chair that swivels upside down in your train? We didn't even talk about it. But
without a seat belt, and I don't want to think of the logic. Thank you.
Or like, I don't know, just those kinds of things plagued me. And look, there is a place for turn your brain off and watch it. I get that. And I can do that to a certain degree, but there is a limit. I have a limit on how much I can turn my brain off to watch a movie, and this movie was testing it hard. So yeah, I'm not going to be as kind as to say I think there's something to get out of it. I think if you saw it before, there is a nostalgia factor. It's worth watching then. I think if my wife, who has never seen this movie, had watched it with me, she would have been side-eyeing me the whole time going, why is this funny? I don't get what you like so much about this. Matter of fact, I know that's what would have happened because this has happened before. There have been things I've shown her and she's like, whatever you say, buddy, you're so cute. And that's all I get out of it. So yeah, no, I'm going to go 1 point down. I think that some of the visuals are great. Some of them are real bad. They're just not very good. They spent a lot of budget on that damn spider, and a lot of other stuff.
Boy, that spider was baffling, wasn't it? The obsession.
I think you've got a couple of great performances with Kevin Kline and Kenneth Branagh, but then you got a couple of real phoning it in performances. Again, Will Smith, Salma Hayek. It's literally right down the middle, I think, with your stars. I do think we should give some credit. His name escapes me, but the guy who played Bloodbath McGrath, he's
Ted Levine.
Great. I thought
Ted Levine.
Ted Levine. Yes, I knew he was like a big guy. And I couldn't think of his name. I thought he was great.
He was.
I think there are bits in the movie that I like, that I think are funny. I love, it's a very Will Smith bit for him to try to get out of the hanging. And we quote it all the time, red, color of passion. Like, that's funny. It's a good bit. But it goes on too long. It goes on way too long, like most of these bits in this movie.
That's a man's head. We quote it all the time, and it's funny. But rewatching it today, I went, this went on too long. He should have cut it off after 2 or 3 times. Yeah.
4 times. The comedy is the rule of three. I thought as a third one, I was like, okay, that'll be it. But I remember thinking as it was happening,
he draws it out more.
He does it another time. Yeah, because there's one where he does the head, you know.
Too long.
It was a weird choice, man. It was a weird choice. Yeah, I like I said, I can go right down the middle and say, if you've seen this before, maybe rewatch it again and temper your expectations. This is not Dog Soldiers. I didn't watch it again and go, oh God, that was terrible.
No, right.
But if you're new to this movie in 2024, I doubt, unless you are under the age of 15, I doubt it's going to do anything for you.
If you're under the age of 15, you're probably waiting for that big Skibbity Toilet franchise to come out from Michael Bay, and fuck you.
For Michael Bay! He's
going
to do the Skibbity Toilet cinematic universe.
And the guy, one of the other guys involved with this said that they're cooking up something that could be as big as the Marvel Universe with Skibbity Toilet.
Or John Wick. It could be as serious as John Wick.
Dear fucking God, that makes me so mad. I had a question about something that upset me, but now I'm tipsy and I don't remember. That's the honest answer.
Why don't we let Jesse give us?
Well, it's Bloodbath McGrath. I hated
the
Ted
ear
Levine. He
spits through his ear.
Well, no. I just say I hated
that?
Ted Levine in the role when I was a kid. He was my least favorite part. But rewatching it, Bloodbath was a really good part. Was actually a pretty good character. The fact that there were a lot of things in this movie, whether you agree or not, that it was good the way they did it. It subverted expectations in the sense that you thought Ted Levine as Bloodbath McGrath was going to be the secondary villain. Turns out he wasn't. Like, he wasn't a great character, like a good person, but his reputation as Bloodbath McGrath wasn't really fair. He wasn't as evil as you thought he was, and he was betrayed by the main guy. The fact that you thought Salma Hayek was looking for the father, and it was actually her husband, whether or not you agree with it, there was a lot of stuff in this film that made me go, oh, they were trying to trick you, whether it worked or not.
You got to be careful using the phrase subverted expectations around 2 former Game of Thrones fans. Let me just...
Hunter.
Jesse knows where this is going.
Hunter, I am halfway through this bottle. Take what you can get. Not my least favorite part of this film, but something I think we should mention as incredibly stupid, and maybe I'm too harsh on this. The part when Bloodbath McGrath gets shot, and he lays there, and the little dog walks up to the
What was that's got to be somebody's dog.
No,
somebody on set just got that dog.
No, it's a reference. You don't remember the old, I forget what it was, but the dog standing in front of the old record player tube, it's an old logo.
Oh, yeah.
So
I forgot about that.
Here's my question. Who the fuck was that for?
Who was that for?
People from the 60s?
Who was that for?
Fans of the original show?
What listening
to Pod Meets World as those guys rewatch Boy Meets World, they've mentioned several times, especially in season 2, like when the kids first go to high school, there's a lot of references like the main bully is like a greaser. Like he's got like a leather jacket and his hair is like slicked back, and they're like, who the fuck is this for? It was 1993. Who is this appealing to? And then they remember, oh yeah, our writers were dudes in their 40s.
Right.
So they grew up around that time.
I just put the picture in the group chat. That is basically it. It's from RCA. The dog's name was Nipper. And that was a thing. And I remember as a 13, 14-year-old watching this going, oh, I kind of get the reference. But what a strange thing to reference.
Choice. Yeah, I have never gotten that. I remember reading it earlier today, and I skimmed over it because I was like, I
all right, Jesse Kimball, help me out here. The whole bottle, probably.
Well, I haven't had many opportunities to interject, Shannon. I wanted to back you up more than a time or 3.
Thank you.
But I was not able. I actually loved this movie.
Thank you.
It's even watching it yesterday, I still enjoyed it a lot. It fills me with joy. Like I lump it in with like the Fast and Furious films, most of Adam Sandler's library of like movies that I understand logically are not good films, but I have an absolute blast watching them. It makes me happy.
Right.
And yeah, watching Wild Wild West yesterday, like I was happy. Like, yeah, there's some not so great shit in it. Like there are a lot of scenes that I recognize as bad. There's a lot of acting that I recognize as bad. There's a lot of like magnet stuff that I recognize as really bad.
He hit it with The Rock, Jesse, and that changed it.
That reversed the polarity. And like also just like sometimes the magnets are magnets and sometimes they're not. Like it goes from like zero attraction at all to yanking him across the fucking like desert. Yep. Like
he also danced a lot for no reason.
I will say one thing I wanted to bring up earlier. I did not realize until yesterday that Kevin Kline was actually playing Grant in addition to mimicking him.
Yeah.
For years, I just thought like, man, he does a great impersonation of that actor. And then as I was watching it yesterday, I was like, that's the same fucking guy.
Well, Jesse, let me throw you another thing real quick. You might not realize Kevin Kline is married to Phoebe Cates, who played Kate in Gremlins, and fuck him for that. Because,
Yes, because if he wasn't, like, you were next in line.
I was right there. Once my album drops out, no skips.
He was coming up. So yeah, because I recognize, because I absolutely agree with Hunter. If you didn't watch this movie back in the day, you were probably not going to enjoy it in 2024. That said, I'm still giving it 1 thumbs up because I just truly enjoy watching this movie. We'll actually be able to test this theory out because Shelby has never seen this movie. And we were talking about it, and we're going to watch it at some point.
Well, I actually talked to Shelby earlier about that, and I asked her what she thought about the film as a whole, like watching it, and she said...
No. All right, that can't be possible, because if you rewind the tape a little bit, you'll hear where I said she's never seen it.
Oh, that's right. She actually said...
Why would you do this?
No, that's what she'll say to me after I've shown her.
After it's over.
Yeah, man, that's the weird part of this film. And it's that part of me that, like, I really want to be an objective reviewer. I genuinely respect and love the shit out of Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel and what they did as film reviewers. But when it comes to a movie like Wild Wild West, I recognize the issues, but I can't help but love it. And I maybe that makes me a bad reviewer. Maybe that makes me more subjective than I'm meant to be. But like, I would be lying if I said when I watched this film I didn't have a grin.
That's why it's hard to review movies from your childhood like that. Like,
right.
You could be an objective, like you could watch a movie this year, like brand new, never seen it before, and you can have an objective opinion and you can form your ideas around it. It's really difficult to ditch the rose-colored glasses when you're going back and watching something that you absolutely loved in your youth.
I loved this so much.
It's also worth noting, if there was a correct way to review movies, not so many people would do it, because there would be no point. There's a reason that Ebert and Siskel and Ebert worked together, because they had different opinions about things. It's not as easy as being objective, right? Yeah. There are times where it's just going to be, I really like this kind of movie, or I really like this actor, or whatever it is, and that's gonna skew your opinion. You can only be so quote unquote objective. Again, with any opinion, none of it is objective technically.
Right.
It's just how far are you willing to give your personal opinion of it? Any kind of reign over what you're actually seeing.
And that's why we say on this show, and we say in real life, because there are things that we are very critical on. We were very critical on Tanner for his love of Rise of Skywalker, admittedly. But when it comes to films and really anything, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else, if you love something, love it. There's nothing wrong with that, even if we disagree.
But if you're going to come on a show to talk about it, be able to explain it.
At least back it up a little bit. But
that's the only thing I ask.
But that doesn't take away from the idea that, like, seriously, if you guys listening to this film, if you ever disagree with us on films, if Dog Soldiers is your favorite film, cool. I don't have a problem with that. Well, it's not, but if it was,
it's not.
You have every right to feel that way. And
I mean, like an actual example, like that we've talked about before, the first Suicide Squad film.
No, that's not one either. No, that's not
how
one
all
either.
Three of us thought that was a dog shit movie.
It's a terrible movie.
It's a terrible fucking film.
Terrible. And the only people that like it are the people that wanted to wear the costumes during Halloween from Hot Topic.
We all know people that loved that movie. People that we still respect and like.
I do not respect
them. You heard it here first.
All right.
There's at least one guy right now sitting in his chair like Elvis with a revolver, and he's like, out of hell with this. He just shot his fucking computer listening to this.
But I maintain, like, a lot of this is subjective. If you love a film, love it. There's nothing wrong with it. Seriously, like, no matter what it is, if you like a film, if you like whatever, it's up to you, man. If you take joy from it, this is our opinion. Take it as you will. It's not gospel, is all I'm trying to say.
Well, the reason we do this is to talk about what our opinions are, not to inform yours and to tell you what it should be.
And we disagree often. Again, Gremlins. Hunter and I disagree on Gremlins. We disagree on American Werewolf in London. We disagree on some things. It just happens. But that's part of being human, is you like things that other people don't. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. To get to the epilogues part of this and to talk about what would happen after the fact, I don't have a lot to add to it, mostly because, like, everything's blurry right now. But if I had to add anything, I think that a film like this really lends itself well to just telling extra tales, almost like a comic book, like a pulp magazine type thing. I think with the characters of Jim West and Artemis Gordon as, the first people of the Secret Service, I think? Or was it the FBI that they were?
They make them the Secret Service at the end. Well, they're Agents 1 and 2, and this was another good actual bit. Well, which one of us is number 2?
Yes.
You'll figure it out.
Which
you'll have plenty of time to figure it out on your way.
Right. One of my criticisms and things I liked about it was they tried, to me, it felt like they tried too hard to make this the Tommy Lee Jones, Will Smith dynamic from Men in Black, where we don't like each other, but we kind of grow to respect each other. But by the end, especially when I watched it today, Will Smith went from calling him Artemis and being really, kind of cold to him to calling him Artie at the end. It's little things like that. I appreciate it. But point is, with a sci-fi Western, there's a lot of tales you can tell, especially if you take real history as kind of a starting point and go from there. I would like to see more tales from that, but I don't want to see it as a movie. We say this often on the show, but I think a TV series with almost a Monster of the Day Sailor Moon approach, where they take on different things as the first members of the Secret Service, could be a lot of fun. I would have liked to have seen that, and of course we never will, but thankfully you can go back and watch the original series with Robert Conrad, and I forget the person that played Artemis Gordon. He was also fantastic, and it's a really good TV series. If you've never watched it, it's well worth watching. You might even like it more than the film. That's what I will say.
I'm going to do you one better. I'm going to take your exact idea and expand on it. Jesse, I'm going to make the kid version of you happy, because you saw the TV series pop up and went, well, you were just Elvis again. This ain't no good. This isn't what I was looking for, right? This movie should have gotten so much of this movie was informed by the success of Men in Black.
Right.
So why did it not also? Well, we know why because it didn't make any money. But let's just say that it had made some money. It should have gotten an animated series.
Don't say that when I take a drink.
That's what it should have been.
Because I almost spit it out.
Yeah, that's what it should have been. It should have been an animated
like Men in Black
TV series for
the Men in Black animated series was legitimately great.
Yeah.
Yes. And do it for kids. So much. What I was going to say originally was this movie should have been a little more kid friendly because it's definitely like treading that PG-13 line pretty hard. There's a lot of cursing. There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of like
nudity.
Damn near, it's very over the top in that respect. But to be fair, in the 80s and 90s, you could have kids series that fucking Ghostbusters. Right. You can have a kids series that's spun out of what is decidedly an adult kind of movie. Exactly. Yeah. Police Academy.
Mr. Steve.
So, and even Men in Black, to a certain degree, was kind of intense for a kid. I think it's rated PG-13, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So you could absolutely make a kid series out of it. Make an animated kid series. I agree with everything you just said, but don't do it in live action. Make it a cartoon. Right. Put it on at 4:00 in the afternoon, and roll in the dough that it prints.
So this is going to sound weird, but I think this would have made a killer anime. I don't even like anime, but I think this would lend itself well to anime with the style, the over-the-top giant robotic creatures and stuff like that. That could have been a decent anime. And since the bar for anime is so low, it would have been even more impressive.
I want a Saturday morning or like mid-afternoon, traditionally animated. Like
Hunter, nobody wants anime. Nobody.
we just get it either way.
Anime's terrible.
Yes. Jesse, what do you want to do? Tell me you're going to pitch me Wild Wild West 2, Wilder West. What happens? What happens in the sequel?
Man, I have no idea. I think the TV show would have been a better idea.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of them, doing like the setting up the Secret Service. Like now they're bosses. Like in this group, like I think that could be interesting. Like constantly fighting over who the bosses are, and maybe having to split into like two teams or something. I don't know. Like there's interesting things they could do with it,
especially when you consider the Men in Black Wild Wild West crossover episodes.
But I do think it would be much better. Like I don't think a sequel film would be good.
No.
Like, would have been good. Obviously, it's not going to happen at this point.
Well, but
it's
you never know.
Fucking way. But anyway, I do think that a Monster of the Week television series would be much, much better. Like that would be really good.
It's not a movie, but if you ever want to watch a really good TV show that has that sci-fi western feel, I've mentioned it on the show before, The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. It's a great show starring Bruce Campbell and Julius Carey. It's such a good show, and it really scratches that sci-fi western itch. It's got it dips into a lot of different genres. It's not the Wild Wild West. In a lot of ways, it's better. But I do recommend it if you are into the whole sci-fi western thing. Because again, Hunter, you might agree with me on this. And I think we did earlier. Cowboys and Aliens is terrible. It's not a good film. It's boring.
It's real bad.
Bob and I watched this movie. This is going to sound terrible. We laid down on a bed together and watched this film. It's already sounded terrible. And
no, I like it. I want to hear more.
We fell asleep. I remember Lindsay waking us up. She laid down in bed with us and she woke us up, and I had no idea what was happening. All I know is that Harrison Ford was there, and so was Olivia Wilde. That's all I can tell you.
Were you at least 5 feet apart?
No.
That's really all it takes.
No.
I think the hot tub rule applies when you're in the bed.
We were directly next to each other. Some parts were touching.
That's okay. That's all right.
They made a TV show based on us. It was called The Ambiguously Gay Duo.
Who was the little spoon is what I need to know.
Me, for sure.
So, okay. Since I know we're wrapping this up, I'm going to present this to you now because I'm worried if I don't, you're going to forget because I can hear it just progressing worse and worse.
I'm fine.
So, next week, as we talked about, this has been Big Willie Styles live, part of Wet Hot E&E Summer. Next week, we have options.
Let's do Phantom of the Opera. Next week is my birthday.
Let me pitch you one more idea because that was what we talked about originally. At the end of the show last week, I mentioned, oh shit, I miscalculated. There are 5 Wednesdays in July, and I thought there were 4.
Right.
So we could do a few different things. At that time, we said we can do another Will Smith movie. I think I Am Legend was kind of the consensus of the next like big action flick. There's also, again, your birthday's coming up. We said let's do a Shannon's birthday episode. We'll do Phantom of the Opera. It's his favorite movie, basically. But it just occurred to me that, and I don't know if you're going to between now and then, but I know you're now excited about it. Deadpool and Wolverine comes out tomorrow. Technically, it comes out Friday, but it starts showing tomorrow.
Right.
Tomorrow, Sarah and I are going to see it as part of our because we'll be back on Saturday. We're going to St. Louis for a few days. And that's like how we're kind of kicking it off mid-afternoon. If you go see it between now and then,
you want to do a new film?
Between now and next Wednesday, we could do that. We've done it for Ghostbusters. We could do it for this as well. It's an option. I'm just putting it out there.
I think that's a good option. Let me conference with Lindsay to see when she's off.
Okay.
I would like to do that because I am cautiously optimistic about this film. The Deadpool part of it doesn't excite me, other than the fact that I genuinely like Ryan Reynolds, and I think that he has such a love for the material.
Absolutely.
The X-Men side very much excites me. Now, I saw the IGN review today. It was a 7. I am curious to see how I would feel about this. So let's.
The Nerdist review was 5 out of 5 stars. Which I don't know how they normally review stuff, but they were all in on it.
Let's see. Let's see what our options are. So here's the thing. Next week, it's a surprise. You don't know what's coming up this week.
That's right.
I would love to do Phantom of the Opera because it is. It's not my favorite film because obviously Ghostbusters is my favorite film. Obviously,
and that's why I said like obvious or sort of.
I cannot watch Phantom of the Opera without crying. And that's why I know that if I watch it and you destroy it, I will be actually emotionally destroyed.
You're getting there right now, actually. I can hear it.
Yeah, well, that's the alcohol has a lot to do with that.
And also, we could do that another time of the year. I mean, Nostalgia November exists for
do it when I'm less suicidal. On my birthday, it gets pretty intense.
Maybe not in the winter, then. Seasonal depression is...
Yeah, Christmas is rough for me, Maria. God damn, listen to me for once. All right.
Oh.
Well, that's going to do it for us, though. We'll see what happens next week. Now, Hunter, you are going to be gone for the next couple of days. We're going to do a couple shows without you, at least one without you.
Well, one, you're doing After Dark tomorrow, right?
Yeah, it's definitely After Dark, and we're talking about our 5 favorite music videos, and we're going to have Ethan Craigmont on the show.
I got to get you an absentee list for that.
Spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you 2 of mine right now because it's the only 2 that I know for sure, and don't take them, Jesse. It's Into the Ocean by Blue October and Bury a Friend by Billie Eilish.
Yeah, no, you're safe.
I figured I would be. The only one that I was worried about, I was like, okay, which Coheed and Cambria video is he going to take from me? Because I kind of want to do Blood Red Summer, because that was the first video I ever saw from them. But Welcome Home is also a really good video. We'll see what happens tomorrow. It's going to be an all-new episode. And actually, Shelby's on the line real quick to tell us her favorite video.
I knew it.
Great dialogue.
Knew it was coming.
That's tomorrow.
I would just do that to my wife.
She's a wonderful person. We all love her very much. All right, that's tomorrow. Until then, for myself, for Hunter, and for Jesse, thank you guys for tuning in. The balcony is closed. We'll be back tomorrow with a all-new After Dark. Hunter will be back next week with all-new episodes. He's going to take a vacation.
Right.
Thank Christ. Get away from us for a little bit and get some sanity back in him. But we will be right here digging into the trenches tomorrow with the most bullshit thing you can think of, probably. Also, I haven't enjoyed life in years. So, all right.
What? Oh my God.
Until then, for all of us, thank you guys for tuning in. Let us know how you feel about Wild Wild West, even though we know you won't because you're all silent. Jesse, take us out.
Going way to the Wild Wild West.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Cisco.
I'm sorry. I have to bring it up, and I apologize for extending the show, but Wild Wild West is a better song than Men in Black. It just is.
It's a catchier tune. I'll admit that.
I don't know about that.
And I'm sorry, Men in Black did not have Alfonso Ribeiro in the video. And Sin win. All right. Later, guys.